Brewers, should they give the Miz a contract extension, buy him out of some arbitration years? I'm going to tell you why that's a bad idea. Coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everybody, good to have you along. My name is Chuck Freeman, longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin, proud host of Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day, the number one podcast, sports podcast out there in the world. Great to be part of Locked On Network. And we're brought to you today by FanDuel. Right now, new customers, $5 if you bet it. If your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Coming up on the show today, well, it's been recently brought up, should the Brewers give the Miz a contract extension? I'm going to tell you why that's a bad idea, similar to the deal that they gave Chourio. Well, we'll talk more about that coming up here in a little bit. Could be a hot market for closers. Should the Brewers trade Trevor Megill? We'll see about that. And we'll get your reaction on a few things regarding the recent news that the Brewers are going to be dumping salary. All right, here we go. With the Miz. News over the weekend here that the Miz, the Brewers, the topic was broached. Kurt Hogue from the Journal Sentinel talked about it recently. Says there's no momentum right now between a contract extension between Jacob Misiorowski and the Milwaukee Brewers. Not that the Brewers wouldn't be interested in such a deal. Of course, a couple of off seasons ago, they did that with Jackson Chourio before he even played a major league game. They gave Chourio a contract extension. Of course, when the Milwaukee Brewers do something like that, whenever they do anything, you always want to hold your breath and say, oh boy, how's this going to work? Well, it's worked out just fine for Chourio. Could they go 2 for 2 in such a signing? Now, the largest contract, the top contract, pre-arbitration to a pitcher, and Misiorowski is not eligible for arbitration until 2029. Back in 2023, Spencer Strider from the Braves got a 6-year, $75 million deal. That is the top pitcher, top contract for a pitcher pre-arbitration. 6 years, $75 million in 2023. Not that Miz isn't worth every dime of that by today's standards and more, right? But I think with the Milwaukee Brewers can't do this. The Yankees might be able to, the Mets, the Dodgers, other teams that might be able to absorb a situation if it goes south for a pitcher. And I'm not saying the Miz is going to go south. I'm saying because of injuries. I think Miz has got all the... When you throw 104, how could you go wrong with that? That's a great starting point when you throw 104. Now, the fact that he throws 104 raises questions. Is he going to have shoulder issues, arm issues, elbow issues, back issues? Is any of that going to crop up? And with your Milwaukee Brewers, that has got to be a top priority in thinking that way, because if that happens, you're stuck with a big contract. Okay, you're stuck with a big contract, and you're already talking about dumping salary for. You're already trying to trade Freddie Peralta, or thinking that they have to trade Freddie Peralta to dump salary. So, if I was the Milwaukee Brewers, I would just wait on this. Now, the one caveat on this, well, if Miz continues to have success, he was 5-3, looked great in the postseason last year. Had his moments during the regular season where he struggled. All-Star, yeah, he was put on the All-Star team because he was the shiny new piece, right, in Major League Baseball, and that was great. He got into the All-Star game. That was fantastic. But if this would not work out for the Brewers as far as injury, man, that would give the Brewers an excuse why they're not spending any money, but it would hurt them. If it was a position player, absolutely I would think about it. But the further he goes, and if he continues to have success, obviously the drawback on this, if you don't sign him right now, or certainly in the foreseeable future, that price tag is going to keep on going up with him, right? It's going to go up and up and up and up. And we know with pitchers, with the Milwaukee Brewers, they don't tend to re-sign any of these guys, as we're talking about with Freddie Peralta here, as with Josh Hader, as with Devin Williams, as with Corbin Burns. When a pitcher gets to a certain point, they say, hey, great having you, but we'll see you later. And they try trading him, which is where Freddie is. The Brewers are with Freddie right now. So that's the one thing. But I think you got to give this some time with Jacob Misiorowski, who's got amazing talent, right? Not to mention, pretty good kid. I know I get tweets from some of you guys don't think he's taking it all that serious because of his demeanor sometimes on the mound. He's smiling and all that. Don't let that worry you. The guy's a competitor. Comes from a great family, 23 years old, solid kid. Was just reading an article this morning, reread an article that was in the Journal Sentinel a couple of months ago, actually, about his dad going through the health issues that he's going through, and how Jacob is very supportive and all that. Just wonderful kid. And that's the reason why you should sign somebody, but he's also got a lot of talent. The Brewers have got a knack for going out there and getting good people. The Brewers have an amazing clubhouse. That has been the one consistent over the years, is they've had I can't think of many bad apples on this team. Of course, there's been a few, but the Brewers have gotten rid of those guys. But for the most part, they've had a great nucleus. And guys like Freddie Peralta, William Contreras, those have all been part of this terrific clubhouse that the Brewers have had over the years. And Misiorowski came in as this young guy, came in and stepped in, and the clubhouse was great to him, as they are to everybody else. Very welcoming. And Miz was a good teammate as well. You know, he didn't ask for all the attention that he got. He didn't ask to get put on the all-star team. He didn't lobby for any of that stuff. Soft-spoken, good kid from all accounts, from what I'm told of. All that. Now, again, that doesn't factor in maybe a little. Obviously, you want a good kid, but there's so much more there with the Miz that, yeah, the Brewers, I want this guy here long-term, but I'm not going to give him a contract extension right now. You know, the kid is behaving, I don't want to say behaving himself. It's like a little kid or a kid that you're raising. You know, behave yourself, good kid, this kid. But that doesn't mean you give the kid everything. Misiorowski, good clubhouse guy, good kid, terrific pitcher. But I'm not willing to go out and give him 6 years at $75 million just yet. Because he's a pitcher. A position player, absolutely. Absolutely thinking about that. But that's one of the questions I think has been brought up. Kurt Hogue, terrific writer from the Journal Sentinel, addressed that. Again, he said, doesn't see any momentum right now. No momentum on that as well. And I can see that. But the Brewers are looking for low-cost things, right? The Brewers are looking for low-cost items that's going to help their team in the long run. And to sign a Chourio, which turns out to be just a fantastic move that the Milwaukee Brewers made. But right now, there doesn't appear to be anything going on between the Brewers and the Miz. Not that the Brewers would not be open to something like that. I don't know if the Miz would be open to something like that. But if I'm the Brewers right now, it worked with Chourio. Different situation, position player. I would err on the side of caution with a pitcher. I'm always on this with signing pitchers long term. And I know I'd love to see Freddie around here long term as well. And this is why I think the Blue Jays signing Dylan Cease 7 years to $210 million. Why I think I would never sign a pitcher for 7 years. Absolutely not. Not in this day and age. And I use the Corbett Burns example, guys like that. And there's a whole bunch of them out there, whole bunch of pitchers. The Brewers cannot be afford to be in a market of signing a pitcher to a long-term contract extension, right? That's just the way they got to go. The Brewers' mode of operation has got to continue to be develop pitchers. Pitching has got to be a priority in the organization, developing pitchers. And then once these pitchers go through their 6 years of control, or 5 years, and then you trade him in the 6 years. Or keep him for the full 6 years. That's what you got to do with the Brewers, because that's the way Major League Baseball, the rules, the financial rules of Major League Baseball are set up that way, that the Brewers got to play by those rules, at least right now. Could change in the future, but not willing to do that right now with the Miz. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk also about Trevor Megill. There's some thought that the Brewers could be trading Trevor Megill. The Brewers have some abundance in there in the bullpen, and we're also going to get your reaction to the news over the weekend, which we've been talking about in the podcast last couple of days about the spending. The Brewers spending and how they might be cutting back and maybe trading Freddie Peralta. Nobody's happy about it. We'll get to all that coming up next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day again. Locked On Brewers, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And we are brought to you by Gametime and FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book for a reason. I'll tell you what, the live betting on FanDuel is second to none on FanDuel. You just go to, there's some sites, you go to FanDuel and you just look at it and it's like amazing. They won't let you put a live play in. If that, you try to search for something and a live play, and it's a complete mess. And the line is open and then it's shut. Open, shut, open, shut. You don't get those kind of games with FanDuel. FanDuel, especially on NFL Sunday, live plays on a FanDuel, they are on top of things. They're there. It's accessible. It's easy to use. And they're not playing any games with you. Live betting is the best. And when the game starts to shift, maybe a team gets down early, a heavy favorite, and you like them, well, you're going to get better odds, obviously, on live betting. All the momentum could change, and you could be a big winner if you play your cards right. Live betting is just the absolute best. If you want to get right in the middle of all the action, FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long on FanDuel. The game moves fast, so you can as well. But again, it's just not the live betting. It's everything. All the sports. NBA, college football, you name it. They're all right there. And the NFL is going on a Sunday here, but there's other sports going on as well. The NBA, college basketball tournaments, you name it. But it's all for you right there on FanDuel. But I'm telling you what, my favorite part of FanDuel is live betting. I love live betting, and take advantage of it right now because live betting, that's their specialty. FanDuel.com. Place your live bets all season long. FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. All right. I saw a report on Yahoo that the Brewers could potentially be trading Trevor Megill. Now, the free agent market this winter is supposed to be hot and hectic for closers of all people. All right. There's not going to be a run on outfielders, infielders, starting pitching. It's going to be closers. There's several good closers out there. Devin Williams is out there. There's reports that the Dodgers are interested in Devin Williams. I saw with Devin Williams, 5 years, $100 million. Are you kidding me? I hope the Dodgers give him that. 5 years, $100 million for Devin Williams. No, thank you. See, this is why the Brewers traded him. That's what the market is for Williams. You kidding me? Did they see what kind of season he had last year? So that brings to you, with some of these high-priced free agents out there like Diaz and guys like that, Trevor Megill, who's making about $4 million a year. He's a little north of $4 million. And the Brewers have, with Uribe and Megill, you got basically two closers. It's a luxury. But obviously one of these guys is going to be the setup guy. Who's going to be, if Megill stays on this team, does he become the closer next year? Does he? Or is it going to be Megill? Or is it going to be Uribe? So with the Brewers having the luxury of having two guys throwing 100 like this at the back end of their bullpen, could the Brewers work out a trade? I would say right now, if you could trade Trevor Megill, trade him while his stock is high. He's coming off what he did last year, an all-star. I know he had the injury. He had the injury in September there, but Trevor Megill is a guy at $4.2 million. Not a lot of money. And just weird to see when I saw this article. Well, the Brewers are interested in dumping salary. Well, $4.2 million should be like you and I to a baseball team. Should be like you and I dropping $10 somewhere, right? $4.2 million should be nothing. So we're talking about dumping salary. $4.2 million shouldn't be a big deal to the Milwaukee Brewers, but apparently they want to continue to dump salary or start dumping salary. But if there's a few teams out there, Dodgers are one of them, who are interested in, obviously, with Devin Williams. They're interested in having a closer. The Mets, the Yankees, there are several. The Cubs, of course. Brewers would never trade with the Cubs, I don't think, in this case. But the Cubs would be interested in a closer. Well, there's like 7 or 8 teams that are on the market for a closer because they just had it last year with what they had. And even a good team like the Dodgers looking for a closer. So I would definitely try to trade Trevor Megill. Now, you're not going to get the ranch for him, but I would still try to trade him at this point. $4.2 million. Nice salary. You'd love to keep a guy like that. But I'm saying in this case, the Brewers have a closer. Having a 1-2 punch to the bullpen would be fantastic. But if you could move him and get yourself a prospect or two, I would definitely do that. I would trade while the stock is high on Trevor Megill right now. Another good clubhouse guy. Salary's affordable, but I would trade him. I would definitely trade him. All right, a couple of things here. Well, when the story first broke out about the Brewers and their financial situation, that they're concerned about their payroll, this was on Thanksgiving night. Imagine that. Story drops Thanksgiving night. You would think it would be a time where there wouldn't be any baseball stories dropping, but it dropped on baseball night. That's what Brewer fans have been talking about basically all weekend. It was talk around the dinner table as well on Thanksgiving. What about this article about the Brewers wanting to trade players, trading Freddie because they're dumping salary because Mark Attanasio needs to dump salary? I call BS on it, right? I think a lot of you guys are with me. Although some of you guys are calling BS on the article. Brett says, Chuck, don't fall for this. It's an article that is basically the national media not knowing what the heck is going on. If they were that concerned, they would not have given Woody a qualifying offer. They would have tendered. They would have non-tendered guys. It's a BS article. So Brett is calling BS on it. Danielle says it's a small market team. They do a good job at making smart investments throughout their entire franchise. Can't just blow it on spending at the major league level. They're making sizable investments toward targeting young, controllable talent. It's the reality. They are investing in the future. They invest in a lot of their investments, which we don't hear about or talk about, is investing down in the Dominican, trying to find young talent. And that's what the Brewers have done over the years and done a good job on it. So they are spending money in that area. They're some of the resources they put in other areas, not necessarily in the free agent market. Dad, please says, this is just the national media talking. Mark says, the fans have supported the Brewers. We supported the Braves. Is there a daddy Warbucks available to buy the Brewers? Keep them in Milwaukee. Mike says the Brewers need to find themselves an additional owner. Well, you know what? Again, Mark Attanasio or whoever buys the team is not buying the team so they can spend money and go broke. Not that Attanasio is, but eventually these guys make a profit on their team by selling it. They don't make a profit right now. They make it by selling the team. You buy it, and then a few years later, you sell it for a higher price. But no owner is going to come in. Mark is not going to take on an additional owner, a guy who just wants to throw his money around and use it as a toy. Sure, there have been some guys around baseball who've done that, but I don't think in this case the Milwaukee Brewers are going down that road. I don't see Atanasio taking on additional ownership. GM says that the Athanasios needs to sell the team. He's a billionaire cheapskate. The fans deserve better. The organization does as much as they can on a shoestring budget. They sure do. But like I said, they do invest their money in other things in the organization. Scouting, good people in the front office that they've been able to keep for the most part. Joel says, I agree. Our owner is just too cheap. It don't bother him because it's no more money for him while us fans suffer on a yearly breakdown. He doesn't care. He's going to get paid a bonus for assembling a team with a low payroll, and that is successful. Somebody asked me also today, what did the Brewers get for going to the NLCS? The Brewers got, I think, $16 million additional revenue, which gets divided among the players, and it gets divided upon who the organization deems clubhouse people, whatever. Money gets divided among that whole organization. Maybe some front office people. I don't know how they divide it up, but that $16 million, I believe that $16 million the Brewers got for getting to the NLCS from Major League Baseball, that is used for just bonuses for people in the organization, players, and again, people in the organization. However, they deem that they want to divide that $16 million up. Big Dave says, you believe everything? This is the same source that said they would trade Freddie. Matt Arnold said they're not going to do that at his press conference. Well, I would say this, Dave. Don't believe everything you see at these press conferences. If Mark Attanasio says, well, giving Woodruff a qualifying offer because we're trading Freddie Peralta, there's no correlation to it. They're independent decisions. Don't believe it. I can tell you that firsthand from being in the media. And I'm not calling these guys liars, but whatever they tell us, they're not going to tell us, well, you know what, we're not going to trade Freddie. No, not at all. In fact, Mac Arnold didn't say that he was not going to trade Freddie. He said everything is on the table. And that's the way the Brewers operate. Everything is on the table. Murphy Wallbanger says the Brewers need to get additional ownership in. I just don't see that happening. If the Brewers do this, says Stone King, I'm done with the Brewers. I'm done with the Brewers. We're never done with the Brewers, right? Even if they get on a losing skid. How many times you've sat there and say, I'm not going to watch them tomorrow night. Then it's 6:05 and you're back there watching the pregame show. Brewers are a habit that's tough to kick, right? I mean, they're a sports team. Anybody who says, like the Packers, wow, the Packers are struggling, I'm done with them. Oh, you may be done with them for an hour, or you might need a Packer or a Brewers break, but eventually you always come back. Alexander says, sounds like a cheap owner. Eric says, I feel like no matter what we do, we will never win a World Series like the Cubs. Even Cub fans are cooler than us. Well, that's not true. It's so depressing living in Wisconsin and cheering for these god-awful teams. Our teams are not awful in Wisconsin. The Brewers won 97 games this past year. Although if you saw them against the Dodgers, yeah, that was awful. That was awful. But they're not an awful franchise. They're not an awful team. They're one of the best franchises in Major League Baseball. I'll stand on that. The Brewers are indeed one of the best franchises in baseball. Top to bottom. I just feel like they need to spend more money. They do. And when you hear the news that they want to scale back on salary, well, that's where people get upset. And that's where I get upset. And that's where fans get upset. And I totally get it. All right, everybody. By the way, our podcast, you get it on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your audio podcast. We're the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet because of you great Brewer fans out there. So you get us on all the audio platforms. If you're already listening to us on the audio platforms, go to our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode on Locked On Brewers. So you can get the video version. You've been watching us the last few days on YouTube. We've been out here in Arizona, not doing a spring training preview, but out here doing a little golfing, coming back, and understand we're coming back to some snowy weather. So that'll be interesting. Packers don't play today. Dropping a Sunday episode with the news of whether or not the Brewers should offer Miz a contract extension. Also, hit me up on Twitter. Chuck Freimund, Freimund, Freimund. Anytime you want to DM me a question and all that, just go ahead and do it. The Brewer fans are the best. Fans are the best. I enjoy running to you guys. And anytime you got a question, either here on Facebook, hit me up on Facebook as well, Chuck Freimund, and we can become friends. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. You can hit me at Facebook. Somebody asked me, why do you get out your Facebook on Locked On Brewers? Because we're a Brewer family together, right? You got a question, hit me up on Facebook, hit me up on Twitter. It's going to do it. We'll talk to you on Monday night, everybody. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.